So we're going to watch a movie that is quite old, from 1962. It's called The Reluctant Saint. It's based on a true story about Joseph of Cupertino. He's very open-minded, but the world does not accept him or understand him. So the themes of the movie is devotion, innocence, faith, and defenselessness. Only an open mind, in a state of true humility, can receive revelation from God. Only an open mind can receive revelation from God when you're in a state of true humility. In this movie, we will see that there are reflections of self-doubt that is like pushing against him. You know, sometimes we feel unfairly treated, the world doesn't understand us. But it is always a reflection of self-doubt that makes that appearance. So once this self-doubt is faced and transcended, then the world is transcended.
This is an inspiring film about the life of Joseph of Cupertino, who became known as the Levitating Saint. Joseph had no worldly skills or abilities, and in the eyes of his family and fellow friars, he failed at every worldly task assigned to him. Incapable of judgment or attaining worldly knowledge, Joseph was drawn to simplicity and opportunities to offer kindness and love. Along with his deep devotion to God, he offered his willingness to follow every instruction given to him by both the priests who doubted him and the priest who believed in him. By doing so, he experienced a transformation of consciousness that left him so unidentified with this world that he was often lifted up to float high above the earth.
So he even trusted the ones who didn't believe in him and followed their instructions. So we're going to enjoy this movie. I just want to comment on how she treats him, the mother. She's like very demeaning towards him. And this is like the guilt in the mind that makes those special relationships like a burden, like a huge burden. And it comes from guilt. This is why the Course has a lot of information about special relationships. It's like the ego hides in them because of fear of awakening. Maybe you can recognize from your own past or from your own experiences how sometimes special relationships can stir up that anger. And she basically wants to get rid of him. She even lies. She doesn't think he's bright at all, but she's saying he's the best student for them to take him. It's like her last hope. The way that life on planet Earth looks is like planned from before. Like the mind is planned for that. These hardships and these lessons to face, to use those lessons for growth. But being in the middle of it, it doesn't seem very easy. They're having a visit from the bishop, and the bishop's heart is very much like Jose's heart. So they're meeting in the stable, and Jose was singing, and the bishop heard it and went over. They spent the night just chatting around the fire. And here the bishop asks, have you ever thought of the priesthood, of becoming a priest? And Jose says, well, I can't read and write. And he says, well, only fools can read and write. But only a few can receive the call of the Lord. So he really sees his heart. He's probably the first one who really recognizes him. Yeah. God doesn't need scholars. He was more like a scholar. The bishop almost fell asleep when he was reading. In the ego's world, everything is analyzed and examined. even the sacred, even the, the experience of spirit. And whoever doesn't want it will not have it, will not see it. It's coming from the desire in the heart. So those priests who didn't see it, they were not ready. They don't want the sacred. It's like, blessed are the pure of heart, because they will see God. So holiness is not of a person, it's not of time and space. And it can definitely not come on demand, It's just such an example of like a lower mind, The lower mind is consumed by form and having evidence. And he levitates when he's in communion. And it's not a show. So he had just no ego, really. He wasn't invested in himself. He just felt the devotion. I was thinking of Jesus when they crucified him and he said, forgive them because they don't know what they do. Do you feel it?
Carolina the Saint story.
Yeah, they were often not liked. They were often not believed. And there's just so much fear in the mind. I'm thinking of how the priests, they're all about the establishment or status, or a bit like with Jesus when they told him to not perform miracles on the Sabbath, They try to put rules on him. Like completely forgetting what it is about. It is about the purity, the devotion. I mean, everybody wanted to come to him, even, but the priests stopped people. It's like they're all about the order and the establishment. It's strange because they're supposed to be men of God. It's about faith, but it's completely turned backwards. It's almost like the ego or the devil took Christianity or Catholicism, turned it upside down. But then there are those souls that are not touched by it, just shine anyway. And somehow the symbol of the statue, the Madonna, was meaningful for him. It supported his faith somehow. Maybe the feminine in this world of men rules, and this Madonna helped him.
There were no women allowed in the monastery, unless there were a statue.
And the symbol was not beautiful. She was broken and she was...
Yeah, it didn't matter.
Yeah, no.
And it broke by devious thought, by this other little monk who was angry, or who was going to try to make something bad for him. And the spirit is like using it all. Like you could take that statue and use it, the broken statue, using the deviousness really, even for something sacred, for something very good. It's beautiful. And then he was the one who really believed in him, this other monk, because he saw it first. Yeah, I think the self-concept is one of the... I mean, it is the only obstacle really to God, self-concept. And it is so strong in the deceived mind and believed to be safe. And when it gets hit or when it gets shaken up, it usually gets defensive, and things are shaken up. They want to establish order again, and the self-concept is like that. It's scary to release self-concept, but that's a fear we need to face. It's a fear we can face. We can release our self-concept, because it was never really protecting us, never really safe. And I think when we're still in a comfort zone, we don't really get challenged. The self-concept doesn't get very challenged. But when we get out of our comfort zone, the self-concept gets challenged, and then the fear can come up. But we should be actually celebrating when the fear comes up. We can allow it. You know, when the fear comes up, we don't feel to celebrate because it's fear. It needs to come up. It needs to move through. A lot of people can hide behind a concept, even behind a teacher concept or a healer concept, a miracle worker concept. Even can be a self-concept that is not. Spirit doesn't need self-concept. I used to share a story of myself when in the past I thought I would become a healer, and I was told I would become a great healer. And you know, when you're told things like that, the ego takes it. It's like, oh, that sounds great, you know. But I never wanted really to grab onto that concept. And so when I came to David and I told him, so then I was told by a psychic that I would become a healer. She had said it like a great healer or something. And David just says, no. Forgiveness is your function. And that was very helpful. And that's what I have been taking on. Forgiveness is my function. I don't have another function. Even now. I don't really feel like I'm a teacher.
Haven't any been healed in your presence?
I don't know. I think I'm a bit like him. I don't know.
I just tug on her shawl a little every now and then.
The thing is, it's about the healing of the mind. And we're often very fascinated by healing of the body, or you know, miracles in form. Even with Jesus, people were so fascinated when he healed people's bodies, but he didn't want to draw attention to that. Even though in the Bible, even it's all about that. It's a lot about that, the attention on that. But he was about the healing of the mind. You know, and that we may not have any great fascination to it, but that is to me much greater. But yeah, I feel like the whole universe is healing, you know, when I change my mind. So I've heard about people who have been healed physically, you know, they're healed physically for a little while and then they take it on again because the mind is not caught up, the mind has not been trained sufficiently. We're here to realize we are mind, not body. That's the whole point. But the hero of the dream is just this. That's the self-concept. That's a big drama, and there's a lot of pride and difficulty with it.
Maybe Jesus only healed mind, and when he did, they believed the body to be healed.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, he was all about healing of the mind, and he had those big sermons with thousands of people, and then people got hungry, and he performed a miracle. He thought, we're going to get them some food here, you know. But it wasn't about the miracle, it was about feeding them so that he could keep teaching them, you know, about the healing of the mind.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Yeah, so always it's backwards when we're lost. It's a separate mind. In the separation, it's very backwards. my own experience with the light beings was like that. It was an experience of such reality. Like, this world of form doesn't exist. You know, I wasn't in the world anymore when I was in that experience.
Explain more.
Yeah, well, maybe I'll share a little bit background, because I grew up in Sweden, like you, and a few of us here. And I was very much into God. Even when I was a kid, I was seeking God because I didn't feel very safe in the world. So I was seeking God. I kept seeking God. And I kept seeking God. And then when I became older, I left church, because I first gave myself over to the Christian church, like a Baptist church, and that was helpful for a time. But then I felt like it was too tight for me. I needed to expand my mind, and it wasn't enough. So I started seeking more in other spiritual things, past lives and other types of healing. And then I came across transcendental meditation. So I started meditating, and that was very helpful. And I had maybe studied the course for about a year. I was still in transcendental meditation. I received an invitation to go to Fairfield, Iowa, and meditate for a year, 8 hours a day, in a golden dome with 2,000 other women and 2,000 men in another dome. And we were going to meditate for a whole year, for 8 hours a day, to create world peace. Was that establishment's goal, create world peace. It was not my goal, but I received the invitation, and I really received it. I could really feel it in my heart that I wanted to do it. Not for world peace, but for enlightenment, which for me is greater than world peace. It's transcending the world completely. So I thought that this I must do, this I want to do. And it wasn't even coming from my own will, it was this spark in me that just ignited. I just couldn't stop. My heart was just pounding for like 3 days. But there I was, single mother. I was a single mother to a 10-year-old son. And I thought, this doesn't really click. It doesn't really work for me to go to Fairfield, Iowa and leave my son for a year. I thought that is just too long time. Yeah, so I wasn't sure how it was going to go, but I had established it, I had the visa, I had everything, but then I thought, no, I can't go. I just can't leave him. I can't leave my son and do this, because that's crazy. That is not loving. I thought, what kind of loving God would call me to do that? That is not loving, that must be my ego, I thought. So there was this one day when I thought, I'm not going to do it. I'm just not going to go. And that day was very, very, very strange. I felt completely alien to myself. I didn't know what to do instead, because there was this one thing that I wanted to do. So I basically just sat there in my bedroom. I just felt blank. Just felt like dead, or like blank. And I sat there for hours. And I think in me was a sort of a prayer of asking what to do then. And then in the afternoon, there was suddenly this experience, this presence suddenly with me. powerful, loving presence, and two light beings are there with me. They seem to be very tall. They are really not in form, but they seem very magnificent. Like, yeah, probably up to that ceiling, the higher ceiling, like magnificent beings of light. And they are my parents, my earthly parents, higher selves. And so I actually tapped into healed mind. I tapped into my own higher mind, my own healed mind, where I could see who my parents really are. And it was just so beautiful. And they were just loving, and they were just communing with me, and they were just telling me all these answers. There was just wisdom in my mind with them. It was this immediate communication. I remember feeling like I was asking questions and they were answering immediately. There was no time in between my question and their answer. It was just immediate. And so it was like a Q&A session on a higher plane. And then they communicate this to me. They say, Jenny, we're grateful that you're going to go on this journey. And so I was like stunned. When they were gone, I had learned so much. Not only I had received all those answers of wisdom, but I realized that high state of mind, which is real, this is only reality, that high state of mind, it's going to take some mind training to reach that again. Because I felt as if my mind wasn't ready to be in that high state. It was like a high vibration light that is existing even now, always. That is the only reality. This other thing is just a dream. But coming out of that experience, I realized I need to transcend the dream. I am the only one. I need to take responsibility for my dream, for my perception. I'm not here to help anybody else. I don't want to help anybody else. I'm not here to find anybody else to help me. I'm going to just follow the steps God is giving me. It was so clear to me. So that evening, I think, I called my parents. I said, I am going to go to America. You have to take me to the airport. If you need some help with your mind, come on over, we'll have a talk. So we did. I remember I said to them, let's sit on my living room floor, because this is where I sit when I pray. And my mom was just judgmental. And my dad said, no, let's do it the way she is doing it. Let's doing it. Let's join with her. But then they cried and they were afraid, and I said, there's nothing to fear. There's nothing you need to fear, but I'm going to do this. So they did take me to the airport in Stockholm, and so, yeah. But yeah, that was the experience I talked about.
Yeah. Amazing. I never heard it.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. But so that was like a glimpse of truth that I had that helped me. And then the mind training came. The mind training and facing my mind. Doing the hard, dirty work in the mind. Yeah. But there is nothing else. That's what I wanted to say to everyone. Let's go. Let's go for it. What else would we want to use time for? What else would we want to use our energy for? So I say this with a big invitation too, to everyone, anyone who feels this. You know, if you want to take steps, I'm here to support you. Literally, I want to support you, because this is I know this is a world of dreams, but it has a grip, and all the roles and responsibilities are the two biggest hooks, and the guilt hooks onto that. We think we're needed by somebody often, but it's a trick. And my son was fine, and there are other stories in this, because my son wasn't always fine when I left. He had a lot of anxiety. He was a child from a divorce. He divorced when he was really little. But what happened was, I practiced the Course ideas intensely. When I'm healed, I'm not healed alone. It's one of them. And I learned something too, because when I was very guilty and anxious about my son, I thought I should call him and check on him. You know, this worry about somebody, how are they doing? I need to call and check, I need to see how they're doing. But all that worry was reflected. Every time I called from this worried place, he was crying, he was not doing well. He said, "But why aren't you with me, Mom? Where are you?" And I felt even worse, you know. So I made a decision, and David helped me, because he said, "You'd better call him when you're happy." He said, he was really firm. He said, "You'd better call him when you're happy." So I thought, oh, okay, I'm just going to call him only when I'm happy. I'm only going to call anyone when I'm happy. So I held on to that, and it felt, that felt excruciating too. It took weeks, maybe a month, before one day I had a day of feeling happy. I said, "Oh, I'm going to call him." So I called him from this happy state of mind. He's happy. He was not afraid. He even said, "Mom, I don't have that anxiety anymore. I go on the school bus and I have friends," because he threw up when he was on the school bus. He was so anxious before all this. But when I was happy, when I worked through my stuff, this lesson, when I'm healed, I'm not healed alone, is true. I learned that. So you ask, how many have I healed? Well, it started then, Yeah. But it's not about me. It's it is about God, and it's about me getting out of the way. That's all it is. And I am getting out of the way, and I think that's why we have this community. We have this is because God wants to bring us home. That's all. That's all this is about. We do have room in the community. If anybody feels it, you can talk to us. It's a good thing to do. It's intense. If you talk to our community members, they probably tell you it's quite intense to do this, and because the ego that is not happy about awakening. I had that too with David. My ego was really addressed. It's very, very good. And it's pretty quick. I think it is a couple of years of intense mind training, just feeling hit all the time. But then it gets smoother. The ego does fall away. And when you start to be able to extend and be used by Spirit, in a clear way, that's very encouraging. It can be very scary too. First time I felt this, probably some of you are at, this feeling I must extend. There is nothing else. I know I either extend or project all the time. So my mind, I need to extend, And you start to feel the calling, you don't know where to extend, you don't know what to do with it. That's intense and scary. I remember I went to some spiritual club in Sweden and sat on the floor in a circle, and I was like feeling I must extend and I don't know what to say. Very intense. And then I called David. I said, I feel ready to extend. And this was actually after this. This Fairfield, Iowa thing. I ended up being guided to David. I wasn't there for a whole year. I was there for a few weeks, and then went to David. I was there for a time, and then I went back to Sweden in a very, very deep fear, feeling very, very, very lost for a time, and thought I had been destroyed. Basically, like my mind was destroyed, or spirit had destroyed my life, something like that, for a time, and then I started coming out of that place. And that's when I started to feel I must extend. There's nothing else. But how do I do it? And I had called with David. I said to David, I don't really know what to do, but I just must extend. He said, why don't you come with me to Australia on a tour? And so I did the Gold Coast tour with David. And that's when my real mind training started. I mean, I thought I had started earlier, but he told me no. You're just about to take your first step. It was very humbling for me. Yeah. You know, there is a line Jesus says in the Manual for Teachers, the Development of Trust, says, "You've not yet come as far as you believe," he says. How can he say that in a line in the book to everybody?
Because it's true.
That's pretty good, yeah. Because we need to hear that. Because the ego comes along on the journey. And sometimes the ego can come along pretty far if you're doing it on your own, you know. So it's helpful. Yeah. Yeah, it is very helpful to be together in a group setting, in a community, because the ego gets flushed up, it gets a bit intense, but you also have support. So it's a speed up to be together this way.
And is it so, as you told about your parents when you saw them in another dimension, so to speak, is that parallel for every one of us?
Yeah, I think, it's just, in truth there is no form of any kind. And I wouldn't say that was an experience in form, it was out of the world. Yeah, so yeah, it was an experience of oneness. It wasn't like they were outside of me or anything. And I think, the fact that they came in the symbol of my parents, they did because that's what I needed. So no, I don't really understand. I don't feel like I need to understand, but yeah. So, but that I know the Spirit reaches us through whatever symbol is most helpful, through whatever symbol we are open to. So it doesn't really matter. It's not.
It's not personal.
It's not personal. It's just whatever works, Like some people are reached through animals because they don't like people.
What I heard, is that there's a kind of Vertrag term.
Maybe someone else knows that knows.
To be
Contract?
Yes, thank you. It's like a contract between us and another.
Yeah.
On another level where we. Yeah.
Your higher
where
self.
we exist in that.
Yeah. There's a plan.
Yeah. That's helpful for me sometimes for forgiveness also.
Yeah.
If there's something like that, then it's all helpful. Everything is helpful. Then
Yeah, I can share something from the course about that. And that is from the development of trust. So yeah, I like to quote this. He says, it takes great learning to understand that all things, events, encounters and circumstances are helpful. It takes great learning to understand that all things, encounters and circumstances are helpful. It's only to the extent to which they are helpful that any degree of reality should be accorded them in this world of illusion.
Could you repeat it?
Mm-hmm. It's only to the extent to which they are helpful that any degree of reality should be accorded them in this world of illusion.
They are only as real as they are helpful.
Yeah. The word value can apply to nothing else. So he talks a lot about this too, about love, only the loving thoughts are true. Only the loving thoughts you thought in the past should you bring with you. Because the illusion is made out of fear. So it is helpful to discern, and it is helpful to follow guidance, because the ego can hide behind saying, well, everything is helpful, so I can as well just not follow guidance. You know, but the ego would like to hide that way. We need to be on to that ego that finds so many ways of sneaking through and wanting to hide.
Since it's all helpful, then you want to do what is guided, because that is your most direct path to awakening. You don't want to have further delay. We've all delayed long enough. You want the straight path home now. So, when your heart calls, when you feel that guidance, it's your opportunity to say yes. Say yes. Say, I want to go home. That's it.
When we first joined, I said to him, you're not going to be very happy. You're going to be very angry at me at times because you can't keep all this family stuff. And he was like, you didn't even believe me.
I don't know. Yeah, it didn't really sink in. I don't think I really did you. Yeah, because I talked to everyone in my family like once a week, my whole life, basically. My brother, sister, my parents. Because we've been connecting, we've been friends for about a year, and Jenny was in the US for a time, so we kind of got to know each other more. But then when this huge love in my heart showed up for Jenny, it was just like overflowing, this huge, huge love. It was like the sun breaking over the horizon and, just shining through me in love for Jenny. And I started to share it with her, and yeah, eventually Jenny started to feel the same thing. So when we started talking about it, the very beginning, yeah, maybe not. It wasn't her radar screen. So.
Wasn't my plan.
But then she said, I think it'd be nice to have you come over here to Ireland, where she was living at the time. And I was like, I'm there. So
I thought he was going to transport himself. He was like so wanting to be there.
I felt like I didn't need a plane to come to Ireland from the US. It was the love in me was so big.
I see.
It was just going to blast me across the ocean.
We had a call one evening when he was literally saying it. I said, I'm almost doing it. I'm almost teleporting you.
Like Giuseppe.
I felt, like I was just, it was just at the edge. I could feel it. It was just at the edge of actually like just skipping through space, right to Ireland. We felt so joined. It was, yeah.
And that's why I also didn't feel that it was going to be an ordinary relationship when we first met, and I thought it's not on that plane. Our connection is different. It's very supportive and very deep and very high. And we're past past this romantic relationship stuff, I thought, I didn't think it was going to look that way. Because of how I had been used to in other relationships and how Spirit had been using me. So I didn't expect this type of relationship. But it's God's plan. And it's not, I don't feel like this is special. It's just a symbol. It's just used. But yeah, we're really, really meant to love everyone. It's not exclusive.
So, how long lasted your honeymoon?
We did have two months honeymoon in France. It was very supportive. We didn't have really other people around us. We spent 2 months in the beginning in a quiet resort in the winter during COVID in France. Like very much solitude, just the two of us in the snow. We could pick whatever house we wanted in the resort. And we had fireplace. We cooked dinners. And it was sweet.
Yeah, and then we got married. We got married after our honeymoon.
Yeah.
And then we came to Spain, because that was the calling that Jenny had felt so clearly, that we were going to be going to Spain. And people started to want to connect in too.
Yeah. Our community was not far away. I mean, we just had those 2 months, just two of us, and then there was community suddenly. In the beginning, it was very small. It was just one person at a time. But then it started growing. And Matthew came to a retreat in Barcelona and said, I'm not going to leave. I want to come with you. And he didn't leave.
But it's all used. It's all used for the greater healing. As we said, we have no personal investment in anything of any sort. We just are here to support awakening, whatever that looks like, however that unfolds.
Yeah. We've been guided to say yes to purchasing this house, even, and we don't really see where the money, where the funds are coming, but we've been told that they're coming. And that's where we are. Our foundation has signed a contract and it feels good, but we have no investment. We do go where Spirit wants us. Yeah.
We're going to Australia also, just starting with your Australia story.
Yeah.
But now it's coming up again in the spring.
Yeah. The first time I flew to Australia, I feel like traveling is a way the Spirit has used for healing. Definitely, literally, a lot of travel and a lot of healing. When I flew to Australia, I was laying in the aisle or in front of the seat in the plane, feeling completely out of it, out of my mind, lost, afraid, upside down. Very weird. I had so many weird experiences in the airports, everywhere, even in my early times, and I traveled a lot. I mean, this is something I feel Spirit is using for someone's traveling. Like I was told by a psychic, I see traveling, you're going to travel. And I thought, I said, that's not possible. I have no funds, I can't travel. Here I am, single mother. But it started happening, and it happened more and more and more and more and more. I traveled, all over the place. Australia, New Zealand, South America, around Europe, the United States, Canada. Japan, China. Yeah. And every time it was healing. Every time there was a lot of, sometimes turmoil, sometimes a lot of fear. But very, very, very transforming and healing.